This week in games, we discuss PlayStation's disappointing showcase, The Last of Us multiplayer game seems to be in trouble, and Embracer just blew $2 billion. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 149. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello, people. It's been a while since Wednesday, but here I am again.
It's been a while since Wednesday. What you're referring to, of course, Connor, is our PlayStation Showcase reaction and all of the videos and breakouts that we put out for each of those that you can go and see live on the channel right now, youtube.com/@2pennygames, where we reacted to the entire showcase. We reviewed it and broke it down at the end. That's all one big video. And then we broke out the highlights of that video. What are those highlights? Well, we'll get into it here in a minute because it is one of our news stories. But what is this show? This is the Two Penny Gamescast, where me and Connor come to you every week, Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice, in which we both... You're throwing me off. You fucking...
I didn't think it would, but that's funny.
Normally it's fine, but today, I don't know. It just made me laugh. There we go. What do we do? Monday, I said that. We come to you with the new news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can watch this show live, twitch.tv/2pennygames, Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Not this week, though, because we had some scheduling things, but don't worry about that. And catch it Monday, 8 a.m., YouTube and podcast services. I already said that part. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and on TikTok. Links are in the description down below. Connor, let's get right into it, my man. Let's drop some sense on them. Let's dive first into this PlayStation showcase right here. Now, as I said before, we had a full reaction to it. We reviewed it. You can see all of that live now on the channel. But, Connor, for those who don't want to watch a 2+ hour video of us looking at video game trailers, let's go ahead and refresh ourselves. What did you think about the PlayStation showcase this week, a few days removed from it?
Mm-hmm. My thoughts are pretty much the same as they were back then, which is they were good games that were shown, some interesting things, some surprising things, but overall nothing really that spoke to me personally. But I can objectively look at it and say that it was a good showcase. It had a pretty good range of games that basically anyone could have watched and found something to attach themselves onto. And many people could probably be in my case, where I just had an enjoyable experience through it all. Even more so because I got to react to Tavin reacting to some things that were spoken during that showcase, which had been a long time coming for this podcast, because for a while, how long were you saying the claims that you had been making, Tavin?
Whenever that first major leak happened, which I want to say was early last year, maybe a little bit before that or something like that.
It feels like it's been going on since the podcast has come up.
No.
Definitely
not that long. Definitely not that long. But it's something that I've been expecting. You were, of course, referring to the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Now, I am mostly with you. I think it was a quality showcase. I think there were quite a few really cool, interesting games shown and announced and premiered, and I'd like to know more about all of those. But that's the thing, is I would like to know more. Like, I did not feel like I learned a lot about anything that was shown in the showcase, with the exception of Spider-Man. There were quite a few games that I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that's happening, can't wait to see more. There were some games where I was like, oh, that does grab my interest, I am excited for all of that. My phone just popped off. But overall, like, I just feel like PlayStation did not give us enough information. We went in expecting us to have a good idea of what Phase 2 of PS5 looks like, and we still don't know what that looks like. We still have a lot of questions about a lot of PlayStation's premier first-party studios that were not answered. I loved Spider-Man 2. I thought Spider-Man looked great. I am, on the surface, excited for a Metal Gear Solid remake, but I have more questions now than I did before because they have not confirmed a developer. They have not given us any type of release window. They haven't given us an insight as to what it looks like. And even the Metal Gear Solid Remaster Collection that they announced, the Master Collection, whatever it's called, also I have questions about because of PlayStation Store leaks, or on the PlayStation Store. I guess you could call them leaks, but in that description they say that we are getting the HD collection versions of MGS2 and MGS3, but that was not clear from the presentation or from the Konami website. But I mean, just because it popped up just now in the video, which I'm not sharing to you, but Helldivers 2 was a bright spot for me. I was excited to see Helldivers 2. I thought maybe there was a small chance of it coming, and I'm glad it was there. It looks great, and I'm excited to get hands on sticks on that. Everything looked good. Not like there was nothing there that I was like, oh my god, no. But there were a few games that I was like, why is this here? Like, all right, why is the cat pirate game here? That's a little strange, you know? But, you know, why are we missing things like Sucker Punch? Why are we missing Naughty Dog? Why are we missing Santa Monica Studios? I wasn't really expecting Guerrilla to show up. They just released Horizon Forbidden West, but I know Santa Monica is working on another game right now. Where is Housemarque? Where's Bluepoint? I have a lot of questions about your premier talent studios, and none of them were answered in this showcase. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Could not believe that was not there. That to me was a lock of like, oh, yeah, of course we'll get a Final Fantasy 16 trailer, and then we'll get the 7 Rebirth gameplay actual premiere thing to start building the hype towards that. Nowhere to be seen.
I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it was. I would have had a moment, well, not a moment like you had, but I would have been excited.
Exactly, you know?
Mm-hmm. You know, one interesting thing about this showcase that I saw a lot of people complaining on afterwards is, you may have forgotten it, Bungie's marathon, or at least a new marathon, because this is actually a game that this is a sequel. Well, not a sequel.
This is it's their game before Halo. It's their IP before Halo. So it's funny to see them working on something with that name again. But as for what it is, we don't know because there was just so little information in it.
An extraction shooter was the main thing that it was said it was going to be focused on, PvP, which isn't like the original Marathon, nor did it have the same style as it. So a lot of people were upset at that. And, you know,
the original Marathon was so long ago. There's no way, like, most people don't even know what it is.
Most people don't, but there's like a core of people that played it, because Mandalore Gaming, he did a review on it a little while ago, and it kind of not, I wouldn't say gained a cult following. Maybe it already existed, that cult following, but it's there, and they were not happy with the direction the new Marathon's taking. I saw that as being one of the interesting parts of this whole showcase.
Way to be part of the 1% who know what that is, Mandalore Gaming, you know? Like,
someone will say, oh, I like that game. I'm upset too.
Bungie can do whatever they want. Like, Bungie's great. I'm sure that game is going to feel like a really great shooter to play, but, like, again, like, we just weren't given really any information on it outside of, like, sort of like this CG trailer that we could kind of, you know, pull some details away from. Also, they were just really cagey with release dates. Why did Spider-Man 2 not get a release date? Like, why did there were so many games, actually, now that I think back on it, that just did not get release dates, and I don't know why we're holding back all of this information. Where is the risk here? To me, the PlayStation Showcase is a rare event type thing that PlayStation does, where they unload the clip on us. You know, I think back to the last one they did, which was over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, where we got major insight into God of War Ragnarok. We got the Knights of the Old Republic remake. We got, you know, some Forspoken stuff for the time, which was cool to look at the time. And there was something else big there that I'm failing to remember. You know, but even the one before that with the PlayStation reveal event, God of War Ragnarok announced, Spider-Man Miles Morales announced, I believe Returnal was announced there or shown off there in some way. Like, there was just a lot of really big, cool stuff. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of really big, cool stuff here. There was a lot missing. And though there were games that piqued my interest, and I was like, oh, I'd like to give those a shot, for sure. There were plenty of those. But none of them were what I guess what I'm saying is we were looking for the AAA PlayStation first party studios that, you know, the names are familiar to us, like the ones I've already listed, the Blue Points and the Naughty Dogs and the Sucker Punches, and all of those were absent, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you kind of come down off it from when you first saw it? Because you seemed like you're a little less hot than you were last time.
I mean, even if you watch the reaction where I was like, this was good, but I was missing some stuff here that I would have liked. And now I'm just, like, the more I look back on it, and now that I'm separated from it, and I'm off of the high of the Metal Gear Solid remake, and I have a lot of questions about that remake that aren't being answered by Konami. You know, like, that's where I'm like, okay, but, like, all right, so let's put the fun, like, this is exciting stuff to the side, or those emotions to the side, and let's look at it objectively. And objectively, we didn't get a lot of information out of this showcase that we were looking to get out of that. Now, you could argue, is that the problem of the gamer with expectations? Were our expectations too high? I don't think so. These are expectations that PlayStation has set with precedent. Like, any of the other showcases were, oh my god, this is crazy, grab my head, shake it, you know, no one does it better than PlayStation. And here it's like, no, this is about average for everybody else in this industry. And like, I guess the way I would put it is, this was the best state of play that they've ever done. But this isn't a state of play. This is a showcase, and the showcase bar is much higher. So, and for it to be as long as it was long, too.
It was so long.
Yeah.
All of that, and at the end of it all, what I had originally been planning to do was load out a lot of my Fantasy Critic. I wasn't able to do as much because of the fact that they weren't really specific with release dates, and there weren't the big titles that were really like, okay, this might, from just a trailer alone, be a great game. Yeah. I couldn't really get that sense when I was watching the showcase. But we do have the Summer Games Fest at the end of all of this, which is the kind of where I'm expecting things to get a lot bigger, especially now that we don't have E3 happening this year. And Summer Games Fest has always been kind of pushed as the replacement for E3. So when that comes and hits, we'll have more than just PlayStation-related games. Which, also, another point, a lot of these games are coming to Xbox. And that was kind of found after the fact.
Yeah, that was a great dig by Xbox where they posted a screenshot of Game Pass. And they're like, oh yeah, all these games are coming to Game Pass. And it was, all of them were from the PlayStation Showcase, like including the Metal Gear stuff, which I was like, that's a great dunk. Good dunk. Good, really good dunk. Really well-deserved dunk.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of sucks because it's just like, to your point of like, you were hoping to fill out your Fantasy Critic. Like, not only was I expecting to get an idea of what the next 2 to 3 to 4 years of PlayStation were, I was expecting an idea of what the next 6 months were. And I didn't get that. Like, I don't know what the next 6 months look like. I don't know what the next year looks like for PlayStation. Now, does this, you know, open the gate for a future presentation? And that will be exciting? Sure. But you set this one. You titled it a showcase. Like, and I just don't feel like they delivered. We didn't get any of the third-party output that I was personally looking for, even though, you know, Square Enix was there, Capcom was there, Remedy was there, which was all great to see from all of them, but most of them were things that we already saw before, or some lower-budget titles. You know, we know Street Fighter 6 is coming. We know Final Fantasy 16 is coming. We know Alan Wake 2 is coming, though it was great to see Alan Wake 2. That game does look great. Phil is a dickhead for stealing that from you in the Fantasy Critic. That was a dick move.
The worst part is I thought it would say like what the current bid is for it, and then I'd be able to tell, oh, I don't need to spend any more money. So I thought I had it in the bag, but I did not.
Well, you didn't spend that money, so you know there's
yeah,
that.
I know.
Yeah,
that is nice. And now I literally have no competition, so I can just do $1 in each category from now on.
Or you know, at the very least, you could just be like, all right, I know Tavin or Phil really wants this game. How much do they have? I think I have $22 left. You just go 23. There you go. It's mine. You know. Yeah, so total waste for Phil too. He doesn't need those points.
He does not. No.
He did it in an attempt to rob me, but I didn't bid. Like I wasn't trying.
And you were over there getting Plucky Squire. And I thought that was I thought that was Phil when I saw it. I was like, oh, Phil's going for that game. But it was you.
It was me. Yeah. Plucky Squire. Another one. Where's the release date for that? What is going on? You know?
I do got to say about the release date, as much as I'm disappointed that we didn't get any, in the grand scheme of things, when I get tired when they release or they announce a release date, and it happens a lot nowadays, when the release date starts coming up, they say, oh, well, we got to delay it, and then it gets delayed a couple months. And I've always said that one of the best solutions to that is to release the release date when you know the game is coming out. So you don't have all of these expectations placed on you, and so you can just announce it a couple months before it comes out and then be good.
I mean,
I don't know if that's...
This is a conversation that I'm even seeing happen in the mainstream, where I'm watching streamers on TikTok go, like, we don't need to see these games until they're ready. Like, they were complaining about Jedi Survivor, and it was like, you understand, you could have just gone and made the game and then market it to me, and I still would have bought it. You know?
But you're a Star Wars shill.
What?
You're a Star Wars shill, so of course you would have bought it, regardless.
Of course, we all are, but like... And like, that's a good point, but I understand the nature of the beast in the business, where it's like, hey, these announcements are good for our portfolio and good for our investors and all of this, and it just announcing that projects are coming makes us money, yada yada yada. So like, I understand all of that, but it like, I don't have a problem with delays and constant delays and so forth. Not to the point of, like, say, a Skull and Bones, where that game just gets delayed again and again and again indefinitely until we never see it again. Yeah. And then, yeah, so, but I was just really, I didn't get what I was looking for out of the showcase, and I wish I had gotten what I was looking for out of it.
Well, there's always next time they do something.
Of course, there is always next time, Connor. And speaking of things that I didn't get out of it, let's talk about the Last of Us multiplayer game, standalone multiplayer game, appears to be in a little bit of trouble. This is coming from PlayStationLifestyle.net. The Last of Us multiplayer game is reportedly being reevaluated as team downsizes. The Last of Us multiplayer game is allegedly being reevaluated. This report comes from Bloomberg and notes Sony has slowed down development on the game in order to reassess its quality and long-term viability. The part of the team working on the multiplayer The Last of Us game was scaled back after a recent evaluation, and some have reportedly been reassigned elsewhere within the studio. However, despite the downsizing, it is still being worked on while going through its reevaluation. Bungie was allegedly key in this process, as the Destiny studio raised questions about the multiplayer The Last of Us game. The multiplayer The Last of Us game. No. It's so, like, the way the extra thes are throwing me off, but you have to put the thes in there because that's the IP. As the Destiny studio raised questions about the multiplayer The Last of Us game's ability to, quote, keep players engaged for a long period of time. Sony touted Bungie's expertise in live service games during the acquisition, and Sony CFO Hiroki Totoki said in an investor presentation that the company planned to apply Bungie's live service knowledge to its other studios. Insider Jeff Grubb also chimed in by saying that he heard that it, quote, looks a lot like a studio's first live service game, and that Naughty Dog wanted to, quote, do things its way, which maybe didn't bode well for factions. And then Naughty Dog also put out their own statement here shortly after the showcase. I think it was like a day or two later. They put out this statement, quote, The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our Last of Us multiplayer game. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, but as development has continued, we've realized what is best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project, as well as our other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passions for our games. It continues to drive us. So yeah, I mean, this feeds into exactly what we were just talking about, where Last of Us was nowhere to be seen. We know that game is supposedly coming, and it seems like, sure, Naughty Dog has a Last of Us multiplayer game, in development that looks like it's, close to being done, but uh, it's not meeting the bar that maybe PlayStation has for it. It's not meeting the bar that maybe even Naughty Dog has for it, where they wanted to do things their own way. They wanted to make it, their specific type brand of game. We're not in that era anymore of multiplayer gaming where you can just have cool, unique takes. You need ways to engage your players. You need reasons for them to continuously come back, so that your multiplayer game, has legs to stand on. Because just being a cool multiplayer game isn't working anymore. We have too many high quality games to that make too much noise. Just being high quality in yourself is cool for a couple of weeks, but you're going to lose traction because the next Warzone update's going to happen. The next Destiny update's going to happen. Fortnite, etc. The big titans continuously dropping updates and new games on top of that to replace the ones that came before. So when PlayStation acquired Bungie, we talked about on the show of like, yeah, this makes sense. PlayStation wants to build out a multiplayer branch. Go get the guys who have arguably the most successful games of a service game out there and make them be like sort of like the head of the Voltron that is your multiplayer makeup. That makes sense. And that seems to be what's happening behind the scenes is Destiny. Bungie is looking at The Last of Us multiplayer gaming going, this is good, this is quality, but players will not stay for this, and you want players to stay.
Yeah, those are all good points. To be honest, that's kind of one of the things I most lament about video games nowadays, because I remember the days when we played multiplayer games. It was, the new Call of Duty came out, and that was something you can play the entire year until they had to make an entirely new game to get you invested in the next Call of Duty. Last of Us multiplayer, that's also something that carried us through many years. It was simple, nice, fun multiplayer system, but nowadays, as you said, there always needs to be something to bring you back. When there's so many different dogs on the street, you kind of want to go play with the most fun one. And that constantly changes. So it's sad that they're having to go through this problem, because what should matter is the core of your game and how it plays and how it feels, rather than just what update you can get next week or next month or later on down the year. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is nowadays. And this is coming from someone who doesn't really play multiplayer games anymore. Partly because of that reason, partly just because there's so many other things to do in my own life, and I'm not a kid anymore who can just sit down and play multiplayer match after multiplayer match. And of course, I got to get better at fighting games, because that's actually something.
But sorry to cut you off, but to speak to that point, I think that's why it doesn't work for you anymore, is because you're not a kid with a bunch of free time and so forth, and they want the people with time. Is what these multiplayer experiences speak to. And they want to satisfy that audience, because the more they satisfy that audience, the more they can capitalize on that audience. They can monopolize that audience, which, does feel a little dirty and a little grimy. And I'm with you. The game is what should matter. But when there's so many great games out every week, what are you going to do to cut through the noise? Have something sustainable. Have something that, sure. A new game. You go ahead and play that other game. You'll be back in a month when we drop our update for this game that we already bought, or that you've already bought, and you'll come back to this, and you'll try this out, and you'll play us for another couple of weeks, and then you'll go off and you'll play something new, and then you'll come back, and we can continuously bank off of you coming back, because, we have, look at this new cool map pack that we're putting out. Look at this new cosmetic thing that we're doing. Look at this new game mode we've got. This new expansion that we've got. And probably as expected, I don't think the message surprises any of us. Naughty Dog wasn't prepared for that. They were probably prepared to put out a pretty solid multiplayer title that's pretty fun. And they don't have they don't have the live service model ingrained in their DNA. I'm still plenty interested in what this Last of Us game is going to be, but if I were to guess, I don't know if we ever see this game again. Especially because PlayStation is clearly in a mode now where they are only focused on giving you premier titles and nothing else. I'd be surprised if we'd ever see a Days Gone again. You know, I'd be surprised if we ever see a Dreams again. Or a Knack. You know, something where they're like, yeah, let's try this. Let's see what happens, you know? I think they're only interested in selling you this premier experience, you know? So, you know, when Naughty Dog says they've got other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience, whether that is The Last of Us Part 3, whether that is an Uncharted, whether that is a new IP, I think PlayStation is more willing to back that because it is something familiar that Naughty Dog is used to making. And when Naughty Dog is, you know, in their element, they hit and they hit hard. That's what PlayStation cares about. So this multiplayer game, I'd love to see it. I would love to hang out in the world of The Last of Us and spend a couple of weeks in that multiplayer game. And if it has legs and does become a live service thing in that nature, I think that would work too. But yeah, as of right now, it's not looking great on that front.
Hopefully they'll be able to release it at some point and it'd be really good. And, you know, achieve the things that other multiplayer games do, which is get people to keep coming back to a good, you know, a good multiplayer game that feels nice and has good systems at play. It makes you feel satisfied. But as you said, yeah, we'll see if they end up scrapping this or not. Depends how far along in development I think it is.
Yeah. The messaging from PlayStation itself is murky too. Like, that's another problem with it is that, you know, PlayStation wants to be prestigious and they want to be like, oh no, you have to play games on our console. But you look at Haven Studios game, which was the Fair Games, which was announced at the showcase. You look at the Bungie Marathon game. You look at the Firewalk Concord. I believe all three of those were slated for PS5 and for PC. But PlayStation continues to say their premier experiences, the things that they want to be known for, are PlayStation 5 exclusive. So now you're telling me your multiplayer projects are not on the same level as your Last of Us Part 2s and your God of War Ragnaroks? Like, that's mixed messaging there that is hurting your brand. I think they're more than likely going to charge for full price for each of these multiplayer projects instead of putting them out on PlayStation Plus, like on one of the higher subscriber tiers, not just the basic PlayStation Plus tier. Like, put it on the extra or the whatever the fucking premium tier is called. Sure, but I don't believe they're going to do that, and I think that's going to damage their base. And why? Because they drag their feet so much in the cross-play / cross-progression argument. And they've just shown, I think, that they value the brand over everything else. They don't take into consideration how to best market, how to best put out, how to best put a product in other people's hands, because for so long the people have come to them. And it's this hubris of PlayStation that they need to figure out a way around.
Not for long. They won't have such an easy time with this one.
I mean, hopefully. I'm you mentioned Summer Games Fest, which I am interested in, but traditionally Summer Games Fest usually is just, oh, this is a cool presentation where I saw some cool games and maybe there's some third-party AAA something that's popping up. I'm hoping to see maybe something from EA or maybe something from, you know, something more from Capcom or you know, some of the other big guys, Square Enix or something, even though Square Enix, you know, just seems to be pretty in the cut with PlayStation. But I'm interested in the Xbox showcase now, where now I feel like Xbox can very clearly surpass what PlayStation has set the bar here for. And, you know, Phil Spencer in his interview was like, listen, you know, I understand you're tired of us just talking about games. You want to see games. But he very specifically said, there are really great reasons to be excited about the showcase. You should watch the showcase. So I'm expecting some solid things from Xbox. Now, I was expecting more than solid from PlayStation and just got solid, maybe a little bit below solid. So now it's like, oh, Xbox has a chance here. Ubisoft, I think, could give us something cool. Very likely won't, especially because they blew so much of their load with Assassin's Creed Mirage at the PlayStation Showcase, which was so strange that they did that. But anyways, we've talked this one to death. Connor, let's move on to topic number 3, your first penny of the day. The one that I'm assigning you, at least in this moment. So I hope you have this this website pulled up and ready to go. Talk to us about Embracer here, my man.
Oh, I always do. And in fact, earlier when we started this, after you doing your spiel about what our shows are, I was like, we didn't decide this before.
We didn't talk about it.
But no, yes. GameSpot's article by Stephen T. Wright. Embracer Group loses undisclosed $2 billion deal amid, quote, challenging year. Embracer Group's quarterly financial results for January to March 2023, its Q4, are now out, and they show growth in key areas such as net sales and operating profit margin. But it seems that the company's performance is falling short of expectations. The publisher's CEO, Lars Wingefors, describes the situation as a, quote, challenging year that was caused by many factors, including a, quote, major strategic partnership that fell through after months of negotiations. The comments do not reveal the other party in this failed deal, but the company describes it as a, quote, groundbreaking strategy partnership agreement that would have set a new benchmark in the gaming industry. The deal was for $2 billion in development revenue over 6 years, and Embracer says that it had a verbal commitment from the second party back in October 2022. There aren't that many entities in the games industry that could afford that level of investment, which have led some to speculate that it could be Amazon or Activision Blizzard. The deal was apparently negotiated for 7 months with, quote, several hundred people engaged on both sides, end quote. However, on the eve of the company's Q4 results, Embracer says that the deal was formally killed by the other party, which was, quote, unexpected to the management and board of Embracer and the board of directors of Embracer, end quote. This setback caused Embracer to significantly change its financial outlook, saying that it adjusted EBIT, a measure of revenue, will now be 7 billion to 9 billion Swedish krona, roughly $650 million to $850 million, rather than 10.3 to 13.6 billion krona in financial year 2023 to 2024. It also caused the company's stock price to crater, with a daily loss of more than 40% as of this writing. It's worth noting that Embracer took $1 billion in funding from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, a decision that prompted scrutiny and criticism from those in the industry due to the country's human rights record in recent years. Though it's clear that this deal had a negative impact on Embracer, it's not all bad news. Later comments that Dead Island 2 sold over 1 million units in its first weekend and 2 million overall, which exceeded the company's expectations. That said, the company said that some of its solid pipeline of projects in development will require more time to bake, including several unannounced titles. The products discussed here were I messed up and read some editor's comment. But poor them. They didn't get their other big company for the already big company.
Well, now this will undoubtedly mean loss of jobs for someone who just worked there and is just a a normal guy or whatever. And I feel for them. These big CEO types, maybe the CEO here will be ousted because $2 billion is a lot of money.
Though that is also admittedly not their fault, because clearly the other party just kind of outright said, no, we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, which sucks. That's, kind of shitty. And you had hundreds of people working on it from both sides and lots of time. And I'm absolutely more than sure, projects were moved aside to do this. So now Embracer just has this big gaping hole where they're like, that thing was supposed to go here. That $2 billion was supposed to be here, and it's not here anymore. I don't know. Hey, Dead Island 2 did really good, by the way. Hope that's okay. Don't fire me. So, that sucks. That's unfortunate. I don't have a lot of sympathy for Embracer CEOs. And, we're just left to kind of speculate on who this deal was supposed to be with until probably like a Jason Schreier or something, gets the exclusive, big press blowout like he usually does. That sucks. You feel for those who were working. Hope, I almost don't want to know. Because if it was like a Disney, we were going to put out 3 or 4 like Star Wars games just for the shits and giggles of it, I'm gonna be like, oh man, that would have been cool to see. But if it was, I don't know, Warhammer or some shit. I don't fucking know. Do we need more Warhammer games out in the wild, Connor? I don't know if we do.
We need more quality ones. Yes.
How's that bolt gun?
Fun, very, very fun.
Oh, okay,
And
cool.
in fact, I'm a little annoyed because the Fantasy Critic last time I checked was 78, but all of the actual like people who just normal people who played it are saying it's like amazing. It's very it's overwhelmingly positive. Last I checked on Steam, and I wish that that crowd of thought. That's a bad word to use. I wish that's what it was because that means I could have gotten like an 80, 82 maybe, 83.
You think it's worthy of that? Because I've not played any of the Warhammer games. Well, I played, what was that one with the rats? Vermintide. I played that one for about 40 minutes, and I was like, this game's not great, Connor. But you were like, I love it. So I was like, good for you. But yeah, to me, the Warhammer games are like the most like C+ video games of all time.
They generally are. That's why the quality needs to be increased. But there's a couple of gems in there that are really, really good. Mechanicus being the one I would have pushed because it's very similar to XCOM, but not at all like a copy of XCOM. It's just that same vein of a strategic gameplay that if you're looking for that, I'd recommend it because it's good. Nice. And you better be playing Power Wash Simulator Warhammer 40K tab.
Listen, man. I'm playing Power Wash Simulator on its third different platform, okay? I played it on Xbox, or I played it on PC through Xbox Game Pass. I played it on PlayStation 4, and now I'm playing it again on PlayStation 5. And you know what? Still having a good time. Still fun. Anyways, where was I going? Let's focus back on this deal here. $2 billion. Not too many big wigs in the industry that could handle this right now. I don't think it was a Square Enix because they just sold half of their studios to Embracer for the property of getting sold. So I don't think Square Enix is like really trying to make a $2 billion deal right now with them. I don't think it was Capcom. Capcom seems more than happy just doing what they do off on the side, not doing that. So now you have EA, maybe, but what does EA have to offer? It would be someone who has IP, right? So you're looking at your Disneys, you're looking at like Marvel games, you're looking at Amazon.
See, that's the thing that keeps popping out to me. Amazon, they don't really have that much of an interesting catalog of games. They're relatively recent,
Lord of the Rings.
None of them have broken through.
Oh wait, Embracer has Lord of the Rings now, don't they?
I believe
I believe they do. I believe it's Embracer who has the games rights for that. You might have to look that up, but
yeah, I would have to. But Amazon, Amazon is very corporate. When you think Amazon, that's kind of the first thing that comes to your mind, similar to the Embracer Group. And when you think of, people, you get developers like this, or not developers, publishers. Woo, I forgot the word. When it comes to publishers, it's like, wow, the Embracer Group really fills you with lots of wonder. But Amazon has a pretty like large workforce, and I would assume they would be getting something. They would be able to, make the games that Embracer Group had originally planned to do until this deal went through. And $2 billion seems good for a studio like Amazon, which, like I said, hasn't done a lot, but it does have the Amazon brand, which, will kind of do enough marketing on its own. And Embracer Group can probably take that and turn it around to make it into a nice studio, but not anymore.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm very curious as to what this deal was about and what would have come from it. But, of course, that lives in just the infinite what if scenario now. And no real solid dates or anything on that. And it's dead and gone. But that sucks. A lot of people are going to lose jobs over this. That's what's really unfortunate. So fully expecting Embracer layoffs, or whoever canceled this deal is probably going to have some layoffs of their own or something. So that'll all be interesting. And I'm interested to just for the story. I'm interested for the story. I'm hoping to God it wasn't like an IP that we care about and would have been like, oh man, that would have been really dope to have those games or something. But also Embracer, Dead Island 2 and fucking what else did they put out recently that was just kind of like mid or whatever. But like Embracer has just been like giving us sort of that AA level of video game. Like they've filled that market because they saw the need for that, and it's like the thing with the multiplayer games. There's just too many great games to care about smaller things like that. Connor, moving
Well,
on to our final topic of the day and your second penny. Go ahead and talk to me about this little story you brought up to me today.
well, this is an article from Game Rant by Truman 2. Big budget John Wick video game in development. An executive at Lionsgate confirms that a video game based on the action-packed John Wick franchise is currently in early development. The first film was considered a comeback for Keanu Reeves when it initially premiered, filled with plenty of action set pieces, a thrilling atmosphere, and an intriguing backdrop with its neo-noir elements. This one film then expanded with a set of sequels, with the fourth John Wick film premiering in theaters earlier this year. Like the previous three movies, it received plenty of critical and commercial success. The franchise isn't stopping anytime soon, with Lionsgate's looking to expand it beyond just films. These extensions of the John Wick universe have been announced as a series of spin-off media, including TV shows, films, and video games. The Continental TV series, for example, will answer several questions about the universe, while Ballerina is a spin-off movie that stars a retired ballerina assassin using lore that was established in the third film. A game based on the franchise is also in early development. This tidbit was revealed in Lionsgate's earning call for Q4 2023, where its motion picture group chairman, Joe Drake, confirms alongside a fifth John Wick film in its early development, the studio is looking at producing a regular series of spin-offs. More specifically, it is looking towards the AAA video game space alongside the aforementioned TV spin-offs. There wasn't much revealed about this possible game at this time, with Drake focused on the slate of TV shows and films revolving around the franchise. In terms of what's next for the John Wick franchise, Ballerina, we don't need to know about that. John Wick has had a foray into the video game space before, as seen with 2019's John Wick Hex, a strategy game developed by Bothel Games and is a prequel to the films. While it's a strategy game, most fans would likely prefer a game that captures the action in the same vein as games like Slop Clap Sifu, or one that learns into Wick being a former Hitman like IO Interactive Hitman series of games.
Definitely supposed to be slow clap, not slop clap.
Yeah, I was like, Slop Clap? I never heard of that before.
Yeah, no.
Kitschy name?
So yeah, cool. John Wick. Fun movies. I didn't play John Wick Hex, but the people who did play it seemed to enjoy it, even though they weren't. Like, you think John Wick, you don't think strategy/puzzle game. But, you know, it looked cool. People who played it liked it. And as you were reading this story, I even looked up Slow Clap, because I was like, who are the Sifu guys? Because they would make a really cool John Wick game, you know? Just, put a little gun in that guy's hand, and that's going to be a great game. Sifu, one of my favorite games from last year. So Slow Clap, definitely up their alley right there. And then they mentioned IO Interactive, who are a little busy with James Bond right now. I think they would rather James Bond than John Wick, but certainly
make those
cool,
kind of
certainly
games.
exciting. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think John Wick is perfect for AAA action video game type IP. You know, like that's gonna honestly probably do better in the game space than the movie space.
You know, Tavin, I remember there was a time, and you remember it too, since you grew up in it, where the licensed games were just a joke. Instantly. It was like, okay, it's going to be horrible. And you'd be surprised, like games with King Kong and Shrek 2.
There were some gems in there. There were some gems.
Exactly. Lord of the Rings. But it's weird to have just like a lot more optimism when it comes to these games, which is also kind of weird because at the same time we have better games, but worse games because they don't come out working as much, or at least the big ones aren't coming out working as much. But it's just a very strange time. A really transitionary
really
period.
A double-edged blade, isn't it?
Yeah.
This industry is. Like, it kind of always has been. I think the thing about it is that, like, the industry has grown up a little bit, you know? Like, we're in a space now where, you know, these big deals mean a lot more than what they used to. They used to make these licensed video games for cheap. And you felt it, you know? You would have less experienced developers working on IPs to, you know, crunch out a video game and have like a terrible 6 to 8 months of just working really hard on this one video game to put it on your resume. So then you could go work for one of the big guys, one of the big PlayStation or Xbox or whatever guys. Whereas now the IPs are going, you know what makes a lot more sense? If we take our big famous IP over here and we give it to the big guys, because yeah, that costs more money, but the revenue is higher. Spider-Man is a great example of that, you know, where we had a bunch of middling Spider-Man games, but then Marvel Games was formed and said, hey, no, we want to treat this seriously, and they reached out and got Insomniac, and Insomniac's one of the best in the industry, and wouldn't you know it, they put out the best Spider-Man game.
Yep. And as you said just a little bit ago, the video game of John Wick would make more money than the movies because the video game industry has grown bigger and now it eclipses the film industry. And you got the big name out there.
Well,
John
I mean,
Wick's
a lot of that
name.
is due to like the mobile game type shit. Like, and it's not like we're like making more money off of fucking Sifu, you know? Like,
Definitely not Sifu, not them. But it's still, it'll bring in a lot of money just having the John Wick name attached to it. It'd be cool if it's a seafood-like game. That's kind of what sticks into my head as kind of the, other than fighting games, as the way to portray martial arts in video games.
yeah, I think that's what we're all kind of looking for, is something like that. And honestly, I think it'd be a big level up for Slow Clap, which I think they're ready for. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes and what comes of it. I mean, it could be anybody. It could, once upon a time I would have said Insomniac, but they're busy doing Marvel games right now, so they don't need that. Oh man, it's hard to think of somebody off the top of my head that I would like, because everyone is just so. This is the problem, is it's that we have a pretty good idea of what everybody's doing, Now, granted, we're probably not seeing this for easily 5-6 years, but it's just kind of cool to know about it now.
Yeah, get the beginnings of it. Some might say we're the first to cover this. That if that wasn't the fact that Game Rant made an article in the first place.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the news this week, and we do not have a review this week. We're in the middle space right now. Whereas last week, right? Jesus Christ, time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
Was it last week? I feel like
it was last week. Yep.
We had our Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom review with both Connor here and our good buddy Phil stepped in and reviewed that. It was the two of y'all, so please go watch that. It was actually really good review. I was thoroughly entertained by it. And there's a nice short / TikTok. There's 2 shorts out actually, because it was just so much good stuff, so much good conversation. I couldn't just condense it down into 1 minute. I had to make it 2. So there's that. So go watch all of those. And next week we will be reviewing Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. That's right. We are returning to the 2 Penny Game Club, our monthly video game book club, in which we all sit down and play a video game throughout the month and then review it and rank it amongst other video games for your viewing pleasure and sometimes our pain. Isn't that right, Connor?
Yep.
You liked that Batman, didn't you?
I loved it. I loved it so much. It's not like it's the only game I didn't enjoy playing in recent years.
That's the only video game you didn't enjoy playing in recent years?
I at least found enjoyment. Well, that's probably not true.
I think it's just because you had to play all of it.
That's
because usually if you don't like a game, you just stop playing it after a couple hours. You're like, all right, I just don't like it. So but you had to play all of it for a review.
That's true. Still up there though.
Good time.
But that's true.
Good time. Brad and Arkham Asylum. Still bottom of the list. Probably will be next week too, I imagine. But go check that out to go see exactly where Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze lands in the list and what the giant wheel of games will be forcing us to play in the month of June. June? Yes.
Yep.
So come back next week for that. Until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.